I just want you to know that your table saw is probably the most important tool in your shop. And if you're struggling with some of the problems that you might be having, it might not be your technique or the wood you're working with. It might be some of the things you need to do this on the saw. Today on Woodworking with Wes, we're going to talk about some tune-up tips that you can do very easily to make your saw work better. The first thing I want to talk about is the blade that you'll be using. In my work, I use only just 3 blades, almost exclusively. I have a rip blade for ripping the length of hardwood. I have a combination blade for doing cross-cutting and plywoods. And then I have an 80-tooth melamine blade for using for the melamine materials that I use for the interior of my cabinets. Make sure that the blade that you're using is for the work that you are doing. Tip number 1. The next thing you want to do is make sure that your fence is lined up with your blade. Your 2 miter slots are parallel to the blade, and so if you line your fence up with your miter slot, you should be okay. But take your tape measure and measure to the front of your blade and to the back of your blade and make sure that you're even. There are adjustments on the fence to make sure that the fence can be moved side to side to line up perfectly. That's always important. Otherwise, your wood will bind or burn or leave marks. Make sure that it's lined up correctly. Number 3 on the list is to make sure that your blade is at the right angle for the work that you're doing. 90 degrees is the one you're going to use most. Now, I purchased a little digital readout gauge. You stick it to your tabletop, let it zero out, and then stick it to your blade to have the exact angle that you're after. Like I say, 90 degrees is the one you're going to use the most. Even an old-fashioned square will help you get that 90 degrees perfect. The next thing you'll want to do is make sure that your miter gauge is square to your blade. This is where our little square comes into play again. Put it against your miter fence and push it against the part of your blade, the flat part of your blade, not against the teeth, but to the blade itself, and make sure you're good and square. That way, when you're doing crosscuts, you're always square. One of the other things you'll want to do is to make sure that the throat or the plate is good and level so that it's smooth all the way around as you run your material across. The plate that comes from the factory has little leveling screws that are built right into it. I like to have a 0 clearance throat, and so I made my own. And then I just use some little self-adhesive tabs, and I use those little self-adhesive tabs to help me level out so that my throat was level. You want to make sure you do that. Also, while I'm talking right here, be sure that your riving knife lines up with your blade perfectly. Otherwise, there's a real good way to bind and stick and not have a smooth cut. Make sure your riving knife is lined up with your blade perfectly. And your riving knife helps you be safe too. One of the other things you'll want to do is to make sure that your saw blade is set to the correct height for the wood that you're cutting. Just slightly above your material. Make sure that it goes all the way through so you get a good clean cut. But not too tall, high above your wood. That gets a little unsafe. Just a little above the work you're doing. That's perfect. Last thing you'll want to do is to make sure that your table is clean, smooth, and slick. I have tree wax, or I have a spray lubricant that I use too. Let me show you what I do when I get ready to do some cutting. I have my paste wax here. I put a little on my rag. I wipe it on my saw and around the blade. I let it dry for just a minute, and then I take a clean cloth and I buff it off. Do your tabletop, but don't forget to do your fence also. Your wood is going to be riding against the fence. Make sure you do table and fence. Well, we've got them done. Let's test it out. Well, now you know how to make nice, smooth, clean cuts. And we'll see you next time on Woodworking with Wes.